We're going to be getting ready to go live here in about 60 seconds. Thanks everybody for joining us. We're excited to get things kicked off here. If you have some friends that you'd like to share this with, we'd sure appreciate you sharing it and helping us to get the message out about helping people to live the extraordinary life.
Absolutely.
All right, well, welcome everybody. Welcome to our Extraordinary Life show. We're excited to have you here. This is episode number 7. I'm David Bush, your co-host, along here with the motivation expert and author, public speaker, the most award-winning motivational speaker around the country, Jim Cathcart. Jim, welcome to our show today.
Great to be here. I love this. This is a fun thing to do.
Well, we have been having some fun here over this last 7 weeks. Every Tuesday at 12 noon Pacific time, 2 p.m. Central time, we have been bringing tips, tactics, strategies, life hacks on how to live the extraordinary life. And if you are somebody that wants to live a more extraordinary life and you work as a independent consultant, or you're just a success seeker, you are somebody that is in search of success and improving your life and living the extraordinary life, this show every week will give you great encouragement and great motivation. The context for the show comes from a lot of Jim's work. Jim's written over 18 books. His latest book, the Self-Motivation Handbook, will be our key focus for today's show, but we bring lots of topics. We bring topics on building stronger relationships in the marketplace and outside the marketplace. We talk about goal setting and relationship building and marketing and all kinds of great topics that are going to help you to not just succeed in the marketplace, but also at home and in families and relationships. Jim, give them a little bit of background on the Self-Motivation Handbook and why you came to the point where you felt like that's what the marketplace needed.
I've been known for years as a motivation expert. I remember a guy asking me one time on a plane, he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a motivational speaker." And he said, "I don't believe in motivation." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "It's no good. It doesn't last." And the flight attendant said, "Neither does a bath, but it's still a good idea now and again." She was quoting Zig Ziglar. That was a famous line of his. But let's think about it for a second. What doesn't last? Eating doesn't last. Breathing doesn't last. You have to keep doing it again and again to get it right. Exercise doesn't last. Saying I love you in a relationship, if you only say it once, trust me, that's not enough. Doesn't last like you'd like it to. Nothing in life is permanent. Nothing. The fact that motivation doesn't last is insignificant. You know, people say, "No, but education lasts." No, education doesn't last. If you go to school, you learn a subject and learn it thoroughly, but don't practice it, don't refresh and renew it, don't reflect on it and review what you've learned, don't put it in the context of application as to what it means and how it works, then education doesn't last either. How many of you took a course in school, like let's say a technical course like calculus or something in science or something in biology or physics or whatever, and didn't use the ideas directly after that? How much of that course that you maybe got a good grade in back then do you remember and have access to easily today? Things don't last. Why? Because life moves on. Life is an ever-moving, ever-evolving item or element. And so our job is to make sure that we are motivated throughout our entire life. Now, I've heard people say to me, "Well, you know, I've got some people who work for me who are not motivated." And I challenge them. I say, "No, they're motivated. You just don't like their motives." Their motive might be to avoid responsibility, might be to shirk their work, might be to sabotage something as an indirect way of getting even with somebody they're annoyed at. There might be any number of negative motives that are being acted on, but everyone's motivated. Even the guy sitting on his couch eating Cheetos and watching TV all day is motivated. It's just that his motives suck. Right? Okay, so everybody's motivated. Now let's talk about what kind of motives matter. Well, motives that make the world a better place. Motives that keep you happy and satisfied that your life matters, that it means something in the world. You know, it's not just enough to have a goal, let's say to have a big expensive car, a wonderful house, a ton of money in the bank, to be able to do exciting and impressive things, unless there's a reason for doing that. We've got to have a why behind the how. So everyone wants health, wealth, happiness. Everyone, every person that's ever lived wanted to feel good, wanted to have fun or have enjoyable experiences. They wanted to have no inhibitions on whatever their desires were, meaning had enough money to do anything they wanted, right? Health, wealth, and happiness. Everybody wants that, but we don't get it in the same ways. So what stimulated me to write the book was I'd been writing articles and columns. I'd been doing webinars and podcasts, giving speeches all over the world for 40 years. And I had a little e-letter called the Acorn e-letter. It's still there. It's on my website, cathcart.com, and it's free. And it's one simple idea, 1 minute idea that arrives every week in your email when you subscribe. And it's not one of those e-letters where you get a ton of bombardment of other offers or where you have to read many pages. It's just a thought every week without fail for 300 and some odd weeks. And I took all those e-letters, those little messages, and I put them into one document. And I started reviewing it. And my initial idea was just patch them together, staple it, and sell it, you know, make a book out of that. Well, when I put it together, I started taking it more seriously. I started looking for ways to make it a more substantial piece of work. And as you showed the group a while ago, what resulted was 306 pages of the Self-Motivation Handbook. And this starts with the basic question, what's your motive? In other words, it says, what do you want? Because until you know what you want, the rest of the world is just going to sit back and follow what other people want. Seriously, think about that. If you don't tell other people what you want, if you don't tell the world what you want, then what you're going to get is what other people want, not what you want. For example, you get in your car, you're driving down the street. The other cars in traffic will be watching you just like you watch them to see where you want to go, see what you're going to do next. In other words, to determine what you want. And once they see that you want to turn left, for example, then those that have enough emotional maturity to be allowed outdoors will probably allow you to turn left at some point. In other words, you get what you want, but you have to indicate it. You got to put your signal on. You got to stick your arm out. You got to look that direction or somehow show other people what you want. When you go to a restaurant, the server is going to walk up to your table and look at you and ask some form of this question. What do you want? And if you ask for it, you will get it. Wow, what a deal. When you go to the counter in a coffee shop, the barista looks at you and says, what do you want? And you tell them and you get it. Son of a gun. And you say, yeah, but I have to pay for that. Well, that's the way the world works. If you write down a goal, a very specific goal that you genuinely want, and it's not something selfish or mean-spirited or something that harms other people, and you start sharing that goal with the rest of the world, people will start responding to you in a way to help make it happen. Bob Proctor and some of my other colleagues talk about this in an almost cosmic way, and it may be true that the ethers of the universe reconfigure themselves in a way that make your goal more likely to happen. But on a personal, practical, day-to-day living basis, if you tell others what you want and what you want doesn't harm or inhibit them in any profound way, chances are good people will start helping you get it. And you'll start noticing opportunities to do it. So let's get in the habit of communicating what we want in writing, in our goals list, and verbally in our comments and observations to other people. And then let's start taking a sincere interest in what other people want so that we can help them get it. I love Zig Ziglar's statement. Zig was a good friend of mine. He passed away a few years ago, but what a difference he made in the world. Zig Ziglar, one of the most famous motivators of all time, said, and is famous for saying, you can get everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. Isn't that a great formula, David?
I love it, and have practiced it for over 20 years personally, because I do believe that it actually brings people into the realization of their dreams and goals in life. And I've seen it happen for me personally. But I also know that there is a sense of discouragement, and there's a fear of sharing your goals with other people, especially if you've failed at achieving them, or maybe you've become unmotivated because you didn't practice the habits. And so there is a certain amount of fear. And as we began to do some surveying for today's show, there was people out there that had a lot of different questions about motivation. Number one, how do I remotivate myself now that I have fallen short, or I've been falling on tough times and circumstances are such where I don't really feel motivated to get healthy, or I don't feel motivated to find that dream job, or I haven't feel motivated to grow my business like I know that I should or that I want to. So what would you say to those people that have maybe fallen on tough times, or maybe that have failed before and they are a little bit hesitant about declaring to the world that this is what they want?
I have a friend who won't set goals, will not do it. And she said to me, look, I don't have any problem talking about dreams, but not goals. And I said, why? She said, because if I call it a goal, I have to do it. In other words, it was self-doubt. She was saying, if I say I want it, if I say it's a goal, then teacher's going to grade me, and I'm gonna get an F because I didn't achieve it the way I was supposed to achieve it. In other words, this is all letting the rest of the world determine what she gets. I believe we need to understand this is not about getting a grade. This is about living well. This is about living an extraordinary life. And the one thing you'll notice about an extraordinary life, it is not ordinary. It is extraordinary, meaning if you do what ordinary people do, if you live what ordinarily is common for you, if you follow the habit patterns you've followed all your life, you will get what you've always gotten. And you will perform at the same level and be regarded by others in the same way. But when you start doing something extra in each of your relationships, something just to help another person out, pay it forward, no thought of return, then all of a sudden your relationships get stronger. People start wanting to be with you more often. People start looking for opportunities to reciprocate and give something back in support or encouragement to you. When you start doing something extra to keep yourself just a little bit healthier, when you stop doing something negatively extra, like eating something or avoiding exercise, eating something bad for you or avoiding exercise on an ongoing basis, when you start doing the positive and not doing the negative, your life starts getting a little bit better. So it's not about getting your dream job yet. What a great word that is. It's not about getting your dream job yet. It's about making this next hour better than it would have been. It's about making this day a day worth looking back on and saying, that was a good day. I'm proud of what I did that day. It's about looking at the next phone call you have as an opportunity to make somebody else's life a little bit better. When your goal is to be a better you, everything becomes easier and life gets a whole lot better. I love the poem. It's an old poem that I heard back in the 1960s, 1970s, and prose actually. It says, God said, build a better world. And I asked, how? The world's so big and complicated now. I'm just one person. What can I do? And God in all his wisdom said, build a better you. In other words, look every day for an opportunity to do one little something. Like I often say, pick up a piece of trash you didn't throw down. then the world's just that much better because you were there. Look at something someone else is doing and compliment it. Say, hey, that's a nice piece of work. Or wow, that nice bike, dude, as my friend Mark Scherenbrock talks about in his book by the same title, Nice Bike. Comes from a story where he saw a bunch of menacing looking bikers in Milwaukee, and he was driving along in a rental car and feeling a little bit afraid because all these big noisy bikes with hairy people on them covered with leather. And he said to the guy, nice bike. And all of a sudden the energy between the two of them became friendly. We've got lots of opportunities day to day to say, hey, David, nice bike, right?
That's right. Well, if you're just joining us here, we're talking with Jim Cathcart here about how to live an extraordinary life and how to become more motivated using his new book, his 18th book, the Self-Motivation Handbook. And Jim, we have a lot of people out there that are in a position where they are in need of motivating others, whether it be motivating their kids, whether it be motivating their staff, family, friends. They want to be the mover and the shaker. They want to make things happen, not only for themselves, but they also have other people that they're trying to get motivated to take action and live extraordinary lives or to generate extraordinary results in business. What are a couple of strategies from the book that you would give to say, make yourself better, but also use these to help other people to get motivated?
First is remember the motive. In other words, talk about what matters. I was speaking a few years ago in Bogota, Colombia, for an organization called Fundación Oportunidad, the Opportunity Foundation. It's an organization that created a school for kids in poverty, kids from the barrio. And they take the kids from these poor neighborhoods and they give them uniforms to wear at school, and they provide them with food and classes and playgrounds and all that to give them a taste of normal life and a safe living environment and a great learning environment. And they know that these kids live in fear and danger every day. They live in poverty every day, but providing this school is a wonderful thing. And I went to the school. Now, they knew I was going to be giving a speech to help them raise money for their Opportunity Foundation. But they also knew that if I gave the speech without seeing the school, I wouldn't feel the motive. I would understand the job, but I wouldn't feel the connection. So they took me. And I toured this place. And at one point, I was surrounded by about 20 kids and took a photograph with them. And the kids were so happy and cheerful and cooperative and supportive to each other. And the beauty of that school was they had created an environment where people were able to live a healthy, normal, happy life, despite being born into poverty and crime and all of that. So how do you motivate the people in a place like that? Make sure every day, every person remembers the reason we're here is to create smiles like the one on that little face over there. The reason we're here is to eliminate the tears like that little girl had on her face when she arrived at this school. The reason we're here, ladies and gentlemen, is the more happy, healthy, safe, and secure people we produce, the happier society will be. So when you're putting away the supplies, be careful with the supplies. Those cost us a lot of money, and it's volunteer donations that pay for those things. And we need to have those tools to be able to provide these services. So your job as the maintenance supervisor matters a lot. Your job as the teacher matters a lot. Your job as the person who cleans the rooms keeps this environment healthy, and we don't end up with sick kids or injured kids because you did your job poorly. Everybody's job matters, but people forget why their job matters. It's like Simon Sinek's famous message, start with why. Of course, because why is the motive, it's the reason, it's the want, it's the why, right? And why always overrules how. They say the person who knows how to do something may have a job, but the one who understands why it matters will probably be their boss. So how do you move ahead in an organization? Focus more on the why and let the how follow that. Not just get it right, but get it right in a way that matters and makes a difference. So if you have other people to motivate, talk about the motives, talk about why it matters. For example, Nordstrom department store has a management mantra: use your own good judgment. And then they tell people every day, story after story after story of good things that other of their coworkers have done for customers to help grow the business. And they say, that's what good judgment looks like. Because it's pretty dangerous to say, use your own good judgment, and then not explain to them what good judgment is.
Yeah, I think that the concept of tying into why, not only the why of the organization, but also tying into the personal why of the person that you're trying to motivate is a questioning process where you need to come into it with some questions. And I like to use the acronym SALT, where you start a conversation and you make an observation, and then you ask some questions that are open-ended, such as, what is important to you, or why do you think that we do what we do, or what is your interpretation of why we do what we do? And just start the conversation, open it up in dialogue. Don't try to motivate them right out of the gates, but listen to what their answers are to the questions that you've just asked, and then tell them your perspective on why you do what you do and why you'd like to accomplish what you'd like to accomplish, or why you'd like to partner with them, and cast some vision, some vision for the future that would help them to maybe get more inspired to overcome their challenging circumstances or their concerns and barriers or obstacles. And
so it's start, ask, listen, and tell.
That's right. That's right.
And still beats the usual, which is tell, blame, tell, fire.
yeah, and blame, right? And blame that it was their fault that they didn't get the job done. So, right. Hey, Jim, we have about 7 minutes left, and I know that we have a lot of independent consultants that follow your message and the Extraordinary Life show, and they're looking at ways that they can become better in business. And you're going to share a little bit about the difference between building a job versus building a business, and a thought pattern that may go with the two different options there. Would you mind sharing a little bit more?
Yeah, and this goes very well with Michael Gerber's concept of the E-myth. The E-myth being that entrepreneurs think they're building a business when a lot of times they are building, in fact, a job. And I found that true in my own field. I've worked as a professional speaker and author, a subject matter expert in the field of human performance for all these years. And so many of my colleagues in the National Speakers Association, 4,000 plus members around the world, so many of them have done what occasionally I have done, and that is built a really good job thinking I was building a business. But the way you know the difference is, if you built a business, you can be gone from it and it's okay. If you've built a job, you got to show up all the time or nothing happens. So even if you're a solopreneur, you can create a business that perpetuates itself for short periods of time without your direct involvement. And that's the thing. Build a business like you would build a life. When you're growing up as a youth, the first thing you have to learn is what you need to know in order to survive a day, right? Where do I find food? How do I find shelter? Who's safe and who's dangerous? What should I do and what should I never do, right? So you need to know, you need the information to get through the day. Second thing you need the actions that are consistent with what you just learned. If you don't act in consistent ways with that, you end up in danger anyway. So you've got to form habits of doing the things that will get you the results that you want, whether it's safety, success, or whatever it happens to be. Now, how does that relate to a business? Well, when you first form a business, what you've got to do is find out, what do I need to know in order to be valuable to other people so they'll be willing to pay for that, right? So I've got to build some kind of intellectual property or expertise, or acquire a product line, or create a product or something that other people are willing to pay for. The second thing I need, and this is where it goes from being a job to being a business, is I need habits. In a business, we don't call them habits. We call them systems. I need processes and systems that will operate whether I'm the one operating them or not. and operate efficiently over time. And the more systems I have in place, and the more substantial those systems and more reliable those systems are, the more my business is worth. So that I can start leveraging my business. I can start scaling it to larger and larger applications. I can start finding new batches of customers. And then I can even sell someone else the license to do the business the way I do my business, to use my systems, right? And I can also sell the business itself at some point because it's not dependent on my personality at that point. That's why I write the books. The book works whether I'm around or not. Doesn't matter that it came from me. It matters whether this is the truth. It matters whether those are workable plans. So create equity by building systems and creating products that can perform independently of you putting today's new energy into it.
Yeah, we believe greatly in the land of opportunity that we live in, and we do believe that each and every one of you can live the extraordinary life if you choose to step outside your comfort zone. And
by the way, where is the land of opportunity?
Tell them, Jim.
That far beyond your existing habit patterns. Your land of opportunity, all the things that are possible for you, are just beyond what you currently do. That's why we call this the extraordinary life.
Yeah, we believe that each and every one of you who are watching this show have the opportunity to live a more extraordinary life than you did today if you're willing to build those habits, or as Jim said in the business world, systems that help you to create the life that you've always dreamt about. You can research us more. You can download an ebook. You can get more resources on living the extraordinary life on the website, which is theextraordinarylife.com. You can find out also about our upcoming shows, our webinars, our courses, and then our live event that's going to happen out in Westlake Village, June 22nd and June 23rd. It's a Friday, Saturday event. It's really built around success, individuals that want to create both personal success and business success in the marketplace. And we're going to be walking through motivational tips, goal setting, planning, workshops. We're going to be dialoguing and masterminding with each other. We're also going to be talking really about the idea of building a business and building your business, the one that you may have been dreaming about, or maybe the one that you've been working in but hasn't maybe grown to the level that you wanted. And so be sure to check out theextraordinarylife.com for more information on the event. Jim, any final comments as we wrap up episode 7 of the Extraordinary Life Show?
I think the main thing is just to remind people that your motive is the starting point for everything in your life. Your motive. What is it you want? What do you care about? What matters to you? See, when you're clear on what you want, when you're clear on what matters to you, you're clear on your values, decision-making is easy. You know whether something's the right path or the wrong path for you. When you're clear on what matters to you, you know what other people are your kind of people, and you ought to have connections with them. And you know what other kind of people are not, and you ought to lessen your exposure to them. When you're clear on what you want, it's easy to find ways to communicate it tactfully and appropriately to other people so that they can buy into that and say, hey, I can help you get that. Let me show you something. Let me introduce you to somebody. Have you tried this resource? Have you read this book? Have you gone to this website? You see, all you've got to be is a positive force in the world, and then let people know what you're interested in, what you care about. And other people will be supportive and encouraging to you. The world works when we work.
That's great. Well, thanks for joining us today. If you share this particular video, Jim and I have a special little bonus for you. We want to get the word out to more people to live the extraordinary life. And we're asking our friends, those who are following the Extraordinary Life Show, to help us to get the word out. And if you share this video, we're going to invite you to next week's show where you can actually join us live on the show and ask your questions around living the extraordinary life. And that could be on motivation, it could be on personal success, it could be on life balance, time management, relationship selling or relationship building, growing your business, any of those topics are going to apply. All that we'd like for you to do is to share this live video and the recording, if you're watching the recording, on your private wall, and let other people know what you learned about the extraordinary life. And we'd love to have you join us in next week's show. So Jim, thanks so much for your wisdom today.
Thank you, Dave.
Look forward to seeing you next week for our interactive extraordinary life and business coaching show. Thanks, everybody. We wish you the very best this week.
Adios.